Welcome to the third episode of the Buddhist Psychology Podcast. I'm Lisa Dale Miller. In this episode, we're going to focus on fierce compassion and what it really is. The Abhidhamma Pitaka is a compendium of the Buddha's 40 years of teachings on the Buddhist psychology of mind. This text classifies compassion as one of the 52 mental factors, but because the Buddha considered compassion limitless, he distinguished it from other mundane prosocial emotions like kindness or generosity. This limitlessness occurs because in Buddhist psychology, wisdom is inseparable from compassion. So compassion can be precisely defined as a swelling of the mind-heart in response to human suffering, which is imbued with clear comprehension of the causes of suffering and inspires a genuine determination to alleviate suffering. Let's start by correcting a common misnomer right off the bat. Modern neuroscience has proven that compassion fatigue is actually empathic distress because it turns out empathy and compassion occur in two distinct brain networks. Empathy is how we know painful experience is occurring in another person. That brain network involves mirror neurons and the insula, the brain area that processes pain. Compassion starts with the empathy network, but rapidly moves mental processing into the prefrontal cortex, where we can accomplish moral reasoning and wise decision-making. These days, engaged Buddhism is abuzz with talk of fierce compassion, as though it is a type of compassion. I disagree. Fierce compassion is the very heart of any skillful, compassionate response to human suffering. Without it, suffering cannot be alleviated in a manner that does not, in the end, give rise to more suffering. Compassion requires ferocity to courageously and accurately know the causes of suffering, devoid of bias or egoic self-grasping. For this reason, I've been at odds with the clinicalized view of compassion that equates it with acceptance and self-love. Compassion is neither acceptance nor self-love. At the same time, I understand how the proponents of clinical self-compassion got there. They are steeped in the Western psychological notion of a reified self, one permeated with self-absorption and a kind of self-fixation that tends to focus on either self-negation or self-aggrandizement. Recently, I saw a great example of the clinicalized definition of fierce compassion. It said fierce compassion is knowing how to act courageously to protect yourself, say no to others, meet your own needs, and advocate for change. That is fear-based preferential compassion and only communicates one thing. I am the most important person here. No one is equal to me and my needs. I think you can clearly see the self-fixation in that incorrect view of fierce compassion. The Buddha and so many successive bodhisattvas and Buddhist masters did not teach preferential compassion. They taught practices to cut through and lessen preferential compassion. Because humility, not self-absorption, is the actual ground of fierce compassion. In Buddhist psychology, compassion is said to arise spontaneously, responding to conditions without acceptance or rejection. And this compassionate impulse occurs to accomplish one thing: a mental movement away from feeling empathic pain to clear recognition of the pain, its causes, and if a viable path toward alleviation is possible. When clinicians get stuck in empathic resonance of a patient's pain, they become exhausted and ultimately burned out. When clinicians instead choose a compassionate response, they feel empowered to join a patient in their healing process. So, fierce compassion turns out to be equalness. Why? Because fierce compassion is radically honest, completely non-hierarchical, and entirely non-preferential. This is why I chose to explicate equanimity and equalness in the previous episode to help us contextualize the value of cultivating a mind-heart imbued with non-referential compassion and bodhicitta. So let's discuss non-referential compassion and bodhicitta, the fiercest of all human endeavors. Non-referential is best thought of as non-preferential. Humans are wired to direct concern and care to specific individuals or groups. We are social and tribal animals. We view fellow humans as belonging to either an in-group or an out-group. Preference is our default. So offering care and concern to all sentient beings, regardless of race, creed, status, and behavior, is foreign. I find most people have the greatest difficulty offering care and concern to those who behave badly and cause harm. Yet many mental health professionals work with patients who have at one time or another behaved badly and knowingly or unknowingly caused harm to other humans or themselves. In either case, both therapist and patient can benefit tremendously from cultivating non-referential compassion. So what does this entail? The first step is to understand the Buddhist psychological concept of dukkha. Dukkha is most accurately translated as unsatisfactoriness, not suffering. This is an important distinction for comprehending non-referential compassion. According to the Buddha, one who clearly comprehends the inherent unsatisfactoriness of all experience can wisely know their own suffering and avert its arising. When most of us encounter other related suffering, we may or may not feel moved to help. An awakening mind readily recognizes, this person suffers as I suffer, and they too endure the unsatisfactoriness of human experience as best they can. That wise view is fueled by a profound tenderheartedness, which dissolves the conditional nature of referential compassion, transforming it into a limitless, non-referential compassion for the ubiquitousness of human imperfection and an unimpeded willingness to alleviate the suffering that arises because of it. Hopefully you can hear the inseparability of equalness and non-preferentiality in that view. Without those two, actualizing transcendent wisdom and immeasurable compassion is impossible. So the key point in Buddhist psychology is compassionate action will always fall short of its aim if it is not imbued with equalness and non-preferentiality. Longchenpa, the great Dzogchen master, said, "There is born in you exceeding compassion for all those living creatures who have forgotten their true nature." That is a beautiful distillation of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is a commitment to fully awaken for the benefit of all other beings. Bodhi means awake or enlightened essence. And in Mahayana and Vajrayana Buddhism, citta means both mind and heart. Bodhicitta has two levels, absolute bodhicitta and relative bodhicitta. Absolute bodhicitta is the awakened mind-heart, liberated from all preferentiality, all self-delusion, and all dualistic perception. Relative bodhicitta is the path by which we realize absolute bodhicitta. And that path has two aspects. The first aspect is aspiration bodhicitta. This is what inspires us to awaken ourselves and all beings, even when it feels difficult, overwhelming, or impossible. And that could be a lot of the time. Application bodhicitta is how we accomplish the awakened mind-heart and offer it to awaken all beings everywhere. And this is done through meditation practice, virtuous conduct, healing psychophysical diseases, and doing our best to cultivate non-suffering in our own daily lives. So I thought in this episode, we would do a simple but very effective compassion practice. And because I know I am an imperfect being, and maybe some of you are already awakened, most humans are not fully awakened. And so we all share human imperfection. And we have to start where we are. This is a compassion cultivation practice with phrases that reflect the inseparability of wisdom and care, equalness, and non-preferentiality. These phrases can be done for oneself, directed to another person, or, of course, for all beings everywhere. And with compassion practice, that cultivation for all beings everywhere, as you have just heard, is ultimately the goal that we really are seeking. We will do this practice. I will say a phrase and leave a space so that you can say the phrase. This time, we'll do the compassion practice first for oneself, then for another person, and finally for all beings everywhere. And this way you, I think, will experience how directing this compassion can feel different depending upon the object of our practice. So we will begin. Start by allowing your awareness to just become present with your body, where you are, the chair you're sitting in, cushion you're sitting on, possibly the bed you're lying on. And see if you can let your awareness be wide enough to feel the whole body, just as it is. Don't change anything, don't fix anything. Ultimately, you are a being inhabiting a body. So, drop your awareness into this beautiful body. And now I want you to let your awareness be turned to the place in the body where, when you have some happiness or some feeling of care or love, this is the part of your body that feels a bit expanded. And that can be different for different people. It's not always the heart center, strangely enough. So allow your awareness to just inhabit the part of your body that feels open and expanded when you are experiencing care. And we're going to start by doing the phrases for ourselves. So if you wish, you could contemplate something either physical or psychophysical, which has a quality of unsatisfactoriness for you. And that can show up in any kind of way, because as we said before, all experience is imbued with some kind of unsatisfactoriness. Even the really wonderful experiences do not last forever, and so that impermanence of even wonderful experience is the quality of unsatisfactoriness. As you bring to mind whatever this quality or body part or a way of being in the world that is a source of unsatisfactoriness for you, we're going to say these three phrases. May I have compassion for my pain and suffering. May my pain and suffering be eased. May I be at peace. So, though these phrases are fairly simple, a whole complex of thoughts and feelings may be arising in you, including if it's something in your physical system, you may be having body sensations in that area. And what's best is if you can allow yourself to just presence whatever is arising without acting on it, without trying to fix it, stop it, increase it. Even if you're having swelling of a heart and all this love and joy, do not grasp at it. It will come and go. So we're going to do the phrases a second time, and I'm going to word it differently, and you'll see if it feels different to you. May I have compassion for this pain and suffering. May this pain and suffering be eased. May it be a source of peace. So that time, the pronouns were changed from my pain and suffering to this pain and suffering. From may I be at peace to may this pain and suffering actually be a source of peace for me. So we'll do this one more time with these two different kinds of phrasing to give you a chance to see if there's any difference for you. One reason I'm doing this is it can be very profound to feel the difference as a clinician, because you may have patients for whom one or the other of these phrasings works better for them. May I have compassion for my pain and suffering. May my pain and suffering be eased. May I be at peace. May I have compassion for this pain and suffering. May this pain and suffering be eased. May this pain and suffering be a source of peace. So now we will do the phrases for another person. So bring to mind someone who's having a difficult time and you wish to offer compassion to them. And when you bring them to mind, you can just see them in your mind. You can bring them into the part of your body where you feel that swelling. Either way is fine. So we will say the phrases for them. May you have compassion for your pain and suffering. May your pain and suffering be eased. May you be at peace. May you have compassion for your pain and suffering. May your pain and suffering be eased. May you be at peace. And you can notice whether it feels different offering compassion for someone else's pain and suffering, whether the quality of your own open-heartedness increases, decreases, stays the same. Just take note and be interested. And finally, we're going to do the phrases for all beings everywhere. May all sentient beings have compassion for their pain and suffering. May the pain and suffering of all beings be eased. May all beings be at peace. And you don't have to see all beings everywhere. Some people are very visual and it helps them to imagine. On the other hand, you can have this feeling of limitless extension, that there's no barrier to limitless compassion when it is offered, and it's offered in the limitless impulse with no barriers. It goes everywhere to everyone in all directions. That has a very different kind of feeling to it. See if you can just allow yourself to inhabit that kind of intention and expansion. And we'll do this one last time for all beings. May all beings everywhere have compassion for their pain and suffering. May all beings have their pain and suffering eased. And may all beings everywhere be at peace. Just feel the open-heartedness, the equalness, the non-preferentiality. Everything is included, nothing is left out. This is fierce compassion. So allow your eyes to very gently open if they've been closed, and as gently let your awareness expand to include not just your body, but the room you're in. Hear the sounds, feel the textures of your clothing, the bed, the chair you're sitting in. See the objects in the room. Just return with this open-heartedness and here-ness. So this is the offering for today, and feel free to reach out with comments, questions through my Integrative Psychotherapy Substack portal. And I wish you all freedom from suffering and the ability to be at peace no matter the causes and conditions.